actually working. This is like a fucking. This is crazy, man. We're fucking. I can't even think of the word. Those Dunkin' Donuts have destroyed my brain. That's why you don't go with American food. It's just filled with
Yeah,
rails and Vietnam vets.
definitely full of like all kinds of Agent Yellow and stuff that they were dropping in the napalm bombs, and
Oh, 100%. I fully believe
it's
it. Why would they give us food that benefits us when they don't even need money? Money's not real. It's just they have infinite amounts of little digits on the PC. They don't even have a PC. They have some fucking cyclop alien in some dungeon in fucking ex-Viet Cong territory with like some supercomputer just fucking tapping into our brains using fucking Tesla's energy fields.
yeah,
Plus,
100%. They're just sucking our thoughts out of thin air, fully, absolutely.
got everything on the go in their pedophile sanctuary. So, what's the topic of conversation for today's? Actually, we have a viewer. Our viewer count is up, like, not to brag, but up by fucking like 1,000%, man. It's up.
Yes, because we talk about interesting shit, and thank you, viewers. You should be listening to us. Yeah, we
Yeah, no,
deserve your ears fully.
yeah, 100%. No, like for real, that is very nice. It's a nice feeling that there's the odd person out there with good taste.
Yeah,
In
like
the
my
bush.
taste in food. So, yeah, to answer your question, what was it that I cooked? The base is bulgur wheat.
Oh,
Uh,
that's healthy. Okay.
yeah, the topping was a sauce that I made with tomato puree, shallots, chopped fresh shallots, garlic, um, mushrooms, chestnut mushrooms, various spices are added to it. Um, some chicken breast sliced and diced. Um, yeah, and that was it. But I'm gonna blame the donuts, like, for fucking up your perception on how it looked. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
No,
definitely the donuts' fault. Definitely.
the thing is, James, as I'm sure you're aware, I am an extremist in all
Yeah.
ways. I go from extremely healthy years of just like, eating fucking avocados and star fruits every day and not touching any confectionery. And then once I have one, I have to have it all. It's like when you have a one line of Coke, you're like, "Nah, I'll take another 2 grams." It's that kind of stuff. It's but no,
Absolutely.
like, it's because like I actually genuinely do like Dunkin' Donuts. It's that stint I did in the US with all those mobile applications that give you free shit. You end up like putting on 15 kilos and living in Burger King, and that is why. But in a nice way. It's such a lazy country. I just have fond memories of just frat parties and Burger Kings and just Dunkin' Donuts. And you know what? It tastes better than before because, like I was saying to you earlier, usually in these kinds of countries, these fast food outlets are considered like middle class. It's because it's in a US brand or a Western brand, whatever it is. It's kind of like the family outing place, like you were saying in the early days of McDonald's and Burger King and all the big outlets in Europe and the US. It was that kind of thing. I mean, like when Russia dissolved Soviet Union wise, there was a fucking like 10-kilometer queue or something absurd for people wanting to try out McDonald's, I just find bizarre because, as we know, it's just shit food.
It's
It's
the
just
worst. It's literally the
yeah,
worst. Like,
it's awful. Like
what's
there's that.
worse? What's worse than McDonald's? I mean,
What's oh, I don't think anything's worse than
yeah.
McDonald's. No, it's really shocking. Like it's also just a mockery of how the pictures do look the polar opposite of what they're supposed to. How is it legal? I mean, imagine if you bought a Volvo and the picture advertised like a fucking saloon that was red, and you show up and there's a fucking rusted brown fucking station wagon.
Hatchback. Yeah.
hatchback like 15 years before, you would sue them, man. Like, that's not what you paid for. Like, I don't know how they get away with it. Really, it's disgusting. But do you know what is disgusting? People that take their kids, or more disgusting, people that take their kids, and I don't think there's any like concern that our viewers are these people because they're all of the highest intellectual caliber, but or our listeners rather. But yeah, the people that take their kids to these greasy outlets on a Sunday and like just essentially just degrade their own children and like, you know, take about fucking 30 days off their life for every Big Mac they shove down their throats, washed down with like a litre and a half of some poison cola or Fanta. It's just fucked, isn't it?
Yeah, I think even some of our listeners are not immune to that condition of
You mean me with my Dunkin'
well,
the
no,
hypocrisy?
those with children, I mean, so those with children,
Oh,
so we're not included because we haven't brought our offspring into this mess of an existence, but I
that's true. When
definitely
we do so, we'll save the planet, of course. Our children will be like super soldiers, you know, ready to battle the demons and the Baphomet followers, the men that live in monasteries with kids in the basement. Our kids will be there with fucking AKs and bazookas, just the gremlins. It would be like one of those. It would be like one of those collages or those montages you see on walls, like in I don't know dystopian or utopian movies about like the day the world was saved by a group of alphas who like fended off the fucking hounds, you know, the alpha wolves, as it were. That'll be our kids, just like laid out on Dallas Airport with bazookas and RPGs, fending off the alien invasion. Yeah, but
yeah,
you were
with
saying, returning to the
heads
fast food.
popping out of sewers.
Heads
Yeah,
popping out of sewers, AK bullet to the brain, sewer saved, that scenario.
Mad Max style, fucking
No,
Humvees. Yeah,
I believe that will happen though. The Mad Max Book of Eli scenario. I really do see that happening.
yeah. I mean, we're close. I mean, did you see the Oxford alleged lightning strike
Yeah, what
on?
was the end? We just think
So
there was a light strike.
yeah, they said it was. I mean, what the? I mean,
Oh,
mate.
oh,
It's just, and like this is what I mean. It's like there's just so many things that we just see, and they give an official narrative that we know is bullshit, and the swarms of normies just like lap it, like just like I don't know, just swarms of like people believe or choose to believe it. It's bizarre. It's beyond me. But yeah, for those who don't know, in Oxford yesterday there was an explosion. Yeah, it was an explosion. There was a giant fireball, and there was a mushroom cloud. Um, and this has been put down to lightning striking. And coincidentally, the thing that was hit was a large recycling plant. So I'm sure there was definitely like an agenda. Nature definitely had an agenda on this recycling plant because, you know, of all things for another thing as well, lightning, when it strikes, it has quite a small surface area. Like lightning hits at a point. Like lightning is not a large surface area thin. It's a line that hits a distinct point, i.e., a human can be shot by lightning, a tree can be shot by lightning. If you see the roof of this recycling plant and like there are separate buildings and multiple roofs are melted, yeah, I just don't see how that could be using common sense. Anybody even just listening to this without even having like a visual depiction, should be able to deduce that that's probably, for lack of a better word, bullshit. Yeah, if there's
I'm
anything
sure
like,
there's a tax scam involved in it. There's a thing in the US, well, that's been happening for quite a while where there are an abnormal number of fires that seem to be affecting very specific parts of the industry. And no doubt, being a recycling plant, either it's an insurance claim or for the rebuilding costs, naturally, I imagine, come from government subsidies. So, of course, you smash up your own business, you get the insurance, and then the government pay to have it all rebuilt, brand spanking new again. Taxpayer obviously is the one that's funding the government, so it's all just free money for these corporate elites who essentially just commit these kinds of atrocities all the fucking time.
As a former insurance broker, quite often these policies, like I say, 99% of the time, these policies don't cover you very strangely
For natural
act
disasters,
for
yeah,
natural
right.
disasters and acts of war or terrorism, which is, I mean, why shouldn't you be? I mean, apparently these things are arguably the least likely things to happen, yet you're not covered for them. It's just interesting, and it's just more in line with like, the kind of like retardedness that we see everywhere. A great example with the pricing of like the donuts. Yeah, I see that sort of thing like occasionally over there in Peru, where you're broadcasting from. You know, it seems to be in every establishment you go into, there's some kind of price discrepancy that makes no sense, where it makes more sense to buy less than it does to buy more. And if you buy multiple less, it's better value than buying, a lot more. Everybody knows that the principle in retail is you get better value when you buy things in bulk or in wholesale. But yeah, just some establishments, don't operate on that, which is good for savvy consumers. But yeah, it just also just shows how like backwards things are, and just how kind of like regressive societies become.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there's, as we've seen from the COVID scam and all of that nonsense, they were obviously encouraging people to sit at home, and they were doing this prior to it, and they're continuing on the trend. Until the day we are all essentially doomed, if that hasn't already come. But of course, the idea is to get people consuming from home, not going out into high street branches, not going into bars, not going into pubs. Prime example of that is, of course, raising the price of alcohol in bars in the UK, but actually they lowered the tax on alcohol purchased through supermarkets in the same way that during the so-called pandemic they shut down all the independent businesses and allowed people to shop at the supermarkets. It benefits small corporations, but it also essentially restricts movement, and movement is what keeps people informed. It keeps people social. You go to the bar, you go to the pub, you go to the park to walk your dog. All of these things, of course, lead to inevitable interaction with other human beings, and that is what creates a cohesive society. The idea of dividing and conquering is first and foremost to slice and dice people, to remove people from reality, to remove people from other people, period. And that's what you see everywhere. And that's why there is this promotion of tech: order from Amazon, order from Uber Eats, get an Uber
Hmm.
anywhere. The aim of the game is, of course, just to create this antisocial, autistic society. And look at the rates of autism, though I wouldn't. Social more as a metaphor is everywhere, but actually autism itself as a kind of clinical diagnosis, I guess you could call it, is apparent everywhere. It's increasing since I was a young guy. Okay, you saw
Absolutely.
you saw an autistic person from time to time, but I can tell you, at least this is my opinion, as I've aged, and most of my early years I spent at university, so I was surrounded by people of a very particular age bracket, 18 to, 22, 23. Even though I was getting older and I was still a student, I was being surrounded by these people, and the number of autistic people, and genuinely autistic people, is just fucking firing through the roof. How is that possible? It's not relative to any population increase. It's literally just fucking booming. And to the point where I would partake in psychological studies as a healthy control participant when I was in the UK, that is, and the number of studies of autism are through the roof as well, because it's everywhere, because of the fucking things people are consuming, and they're in, the fetus is being subjected to
Exactly.
injections. I mean, imagine being a not just a pregnant woman, but imagine being a father and allowing your child to just receive a fucking it's essentially like a Three Musketeer fucking fight. Having, being stabbed left, right, and center by various sabers. It's just unbelievable to me. People are just so fucking, just lackadaisical, so fucking deficient in morality and common sense, which I feel goes together anyway. It's
Absolutely.
mental.
Yeah, so you touched on a lot of things there.
Yeah, I'm
Every
throwing the anchor into the sea and seeing what it hits.
yeah, absolutely. So, for example, you were talking about like the insurance claims on like these companies and stuff like that, and also obviously we're talking about the lightning hitting
I went on
the
for
recycling plant, the alleged lightning hitting the recycling plant. It was probably like a bomb that went off or something. Like lightning doesn't create mushroom clouds. Lightning, like if you see the images, it's like a glowing yellow flame. Like
it's
lightning
like an
is
apple.
like very light white kind of strange line, and like no, there was no thunderstorms or any kind of like crazy shit going on. Like it's the whole thing just doesn't even make any sense. Um, but anyway, so then we've also got like this thing that happened in Maui in Hawaii, where there's this alleged, natural fire that started, and the whole narrative around it makes no sense whatsoever. The police are closing off roads where all the escape routes are. Yeah, it's I mean, the whole everything, like everything that we see, everything that's reported, everything that they say is a natural disaster or natural this, anything that happens on any kind of major scale that makes international news, generally there'll be some kind of agenda behind it. um and yeah, we're seeing it a lot with these like wildfires and these natural disasters that are, in specific areas that have, specific history or specific, energy points on the world grid system where there's ley lines and stuff, which I think that we're going to go into more in later episodes. A lot of that might go over some people's heads, but we know that we have a lot of intelligent listeners, and some of you know what that is, and you look forward to us going into more depth in that sort of stuff. Into with that sort of stuff. Yeah. Um, yeah, basically they're full of shit.
100%. 100%. I mean, I think that's the most important thing anyone can learn. I remember, for me at least, the trigger, if you like, was we had actually, she was kind of hot. Not to bring in, the aesthetic of for certain individuals, but this lady was a very good-looking lady. She was the substitute teacher at my secondary school, and she said one thing. I would say it's one of the most important things of my life, not because it's anything, you know, particularly majestic, but some things just stick. Some things are said to you at the right moment when you're really engaged, and they
Mhm.
just never leave. And she just said,
Engaged in the bosom of the fit substitute teacher.
I think I would have been too young then, although knowing, the track record of many teachers, especially substitute teachers, it wouldn't surprise me if many of them were doing that with their students. But I guess that's another topic of conversation. In fact, one we touched on earlier with respect to certain monastic individuals, though I digress. So, yeah, she said, what she said was really simple. She just said, always question the source. I don't know if it's the way she said it, or again, just I was as engaged. My mind was just on it in that day, but it just clicked. Something just
Mm.
clicked. And from there, on, everything I looked at with scrutiny, and I questioned everything, every aspect of, some kind of written formula, a paragraph in a newspaper or whatever, the words that were being used, the placement of those words, the typos or the language, the boldness, all these things, create a message that they tend the subconscious to read without most people realizing what it is they're reading. There are all these, it is a psychological war, essentially. That's what the media, of course, is. That's what most things are. Anything that's a derivative of their prowess is a kind of is a con game, and once you recognise the trends, the symbols, the motions of their behaviour, then things that perhaps 10, 15 years ago I would have looked at and not really understood. So now it just seems is clear as day,
It's
and
apparent.
it is completely apparent, yeah, and it's really everywhere, and I'm sure again many of our listeners have already realised this, but um, the scary thing is sometimes I think you have to look back on how you were before you were as engaged, and that's what I try to do now for myself, because there was a period in time when I personally was like a big BBC supporter. I was like, the BBC is great, it doesn't have great standards, it's all this, that, and the other. And that was a very, very long time ago. But now, I would never would have believed what I'm saying now. So when we try and explain even the simplest of things to a lot of people that are engaged the wrong way, they're engaged in the system, in the standardized narrative, I try to appreciate that fuck, they're never going to get this, especially if we format it.
Mm,
We have to try and steer around that and come at it in a different light. Um, but yeah, it's crazy all this stuff that's happening. So what do you think is the next step for them? What do you think their next game plan is? The climate change thing they've got going. They've got obviously all
I
the
mean, they're forever spinning a million fucking plates at one, aren't they? At once, aren't they? They're spinning the AI plate, they're spinning the robot plate, they're spinning the climate change plate, they're spinning the Ukraine and Russia World War plate, they're spinning the alien invasion plate.
that one's
Um,
really fun hard at the moment too.
and that's been a constant for about 35 years as well. That one, that's been a constant. Obviously, since like the Cold War, there's always been like the underlying bubbling, all Russia and China, communism, I mean, there are some of these are long term, but the Alien one, especially, ever since the X Files was released in like the early to mid 90s, that was like a show that was a major show for the cabal. That was like really kind of making it mainstream. And then all of these things around Roswell, New Mexico, and Area 51, and yeah, and we all know it's bullshit because it's like these sightings only ever happen in like Russia, UK, America, China. Like,
So, yeah.
no one else in the world sees aliens. Aliens never go to like Gambia or
Ah,
no, dude, like never, like ever, like So maybe they're only interested in certain people. Maybe who knows? But
well,
yeah, I know
interestingly,
it's bullshit.
on the spinning plate thing, they have started to bring Africa into the equation. I think we really saw that
Yes,
prominently
yes,
with Nigeria during the COVID scenario. Obviously, recognizing that Africa will always be the coming superpower, continentally speaking, because of the resources that are available. Every aspect of the world in terms of land mass and peoples, they're released, let's say, into the global market at certain times when it benefits the cabal to do so. But Africa's always been kind of like hidden away from the agenda, like you were saying, with you don't hear anything about aliens flying over Gambia or Namibia or anything like that. But the COVID thing really brought Nigeria in. They really hit that hard with, wasn't it Ghana as well, with the whole,
oh,
injections.
flipping hell, yeah, shill nations, absolute shill nations. I mean, which ones aren't?
Yeah,
Tanzania was standing firm until, well,
killed everyone. They whacked off John the president, and then whacked off. I think it was 9 or 11 or 9/11, the magic number or number
exactly,
of his cabinet. I think they whacked off the vice president, the treasurer. I
yep,
think the leader of Zanzibar, which is semi-autonomous, and a series of other members of the political cabinet, all magically died within a few months of each other from various.
literally.
It's literally no exaggeration, and it's mad. And again, this hardly, of course, reached the news because everything was being censored at the time. Even little YouTube channels like mine, I was uploading things, and they weren't even getting past the upload stage. Their algorithm would analyze the content in terms of the language, given that it was a kind of a vlog, and would bar it based on keywords that they felt were going against their set agenda. And coincidentally, James, actually, I was scrolling through my YouTube the other day and I actually found the original one that was banned. It's been reinstated onto my account now with no warning, no message, no email saying it's back there. And it's frozen still on the same number of views that it got within a few hours of its release, which was in Mexico City in 2021. Mad.
Yeah,
2020?
the
2020.
algorithm has
Yeah.
stopped coming up in any search. Like even if you search for that specific video by title, the chances of it coming up will be nil. It will come up with other things that are, it's like if you're looking for anything that's to do with flat Earth or anything like that, it's like you'll get 8,000 videos debunking anything to do with flat Earth, and not one that actually shows the truth about this landmass that we live on. So yeah, it's we're up against a machine, literally and metaphorically.
And that's a perfect transition, by the way. Just a quick little thing. Today, I went to the catacombs. I think it's Francisco Monastery here in Lima, in Peru. Catacombs are filled with skulls and femur bones for those that might be questioning what exactly was there. And we had a little tour of the building, and in, I guess you would call it, one of the conference rooms, very ornate, a lot of kind of gilding and that kind of stuff. There was a what's the word I'm looking for? It's not collage, it's not montage, but it's like a painted depiction of events that you often see, usually very floral in a lot of Renaissance architecture. What's the word I'm thinking of? Anyway, there was this ceiling painting collage, montage, whatever you want to call it, and it fitted very well with the rest of the decor, and the rest of the decor was all 17th century. And interestingly, this little chap slash lady, it was actually a trans individual who was a monk there. And I was going to go into this actually with you in the conversation earlier. It was very bizarre. Pointed up and said, but just to let you all know, this was actually reproduced in 2010. And guess what it was? It's a Franciscan monk on a globular earth. Ceiling of this 17th century, otherwise 17th century conference hall, and very well done. I mean, it's 2010, so it's not old at all, and yet they painted it intentionally to look as if it was 17th century, not in terms of the style, in terms of it actually looks a bit peeled, dilapidated, and scruffy, and that's obviously intentional because people would assume, as I did when I walked in, that it was very old until thankfully, the strange little Franciscan guide stated openly, which is interesting in itself, that is 2010. Isn't that bizarre?
I mean, not really, considering they do like fake moon landings.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely bizarre. But we live in a world of bizarre things. Where we see, open corruption, and everyone just kind of like goes about their business and, just carries on like it didn't happen. Like we didn't see like things flying the Twin Towers that, couldn't have been flown in by people that didn't know how to fly the planes in that way, doing maneuvers that, trained pilots would even struggle to do, swooping big planes between buildings to hit an exact target. I mean, it's yeah, we could go on forever with that one, but
one
yeah.
interesting point, one quick further point with that Franciscan example, which just flashed into my mind. So they had that classic example, which we see in the UK and Europe, where you had a lot of whitewashed walls, where there was obviously that transition from kind of kind of Catholicism and kind of orthodoxy to a more Protestant look, and a change in decoration came accordingly. So the rest of the walls virtually were all whitewashed. And again, the same monk pointed out, well, they're whitewashed because the frescoes were removed. Okay, so the frescoes were removed. Why then did they decide to repaint the fresco of the globular earth back in 2010 onto the ceiling, but they left all the other whitewashed walls intact without their original fresco designs? Another example highlighting the absurdity and the intent, or the reason for the intent.
What can you explain what the intent would be?
Well, the intent is to give people the notion that, historic frescoes and age-old civilizations commonly painted a Earth in a globular fashion, when it's not at all the case. In fact, these depictions are very much something that are from Galileo and Newton onwards. So we're talking about at the earliest late 16th century and onwards,
Absolutely.
which is around the time when we more aware of the fraternal organizations that ended up kind of governing the realm in a more fluid, monopolistic manner. Not to say that that didn't happen before, but there's always going to be a change in power, change in hands. And clearly, the hands that now control are hands that came in with dominance around that period. Hence, why you have such sizable changes, especially with respect to our understanding of history from that point on. The last 500 years or so have certainly been a period where change has rapidly become uniform in society.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Galilei. Even that name, I don't even know. I don't think he even existed. Like, there's a part of me that feels like this person potentially didn't even ever exist. And obviously, like, he was like an astronomer, and then we have this term galaxy. I'm sure. I wonder. I mean, I'm assuming. I wonder if that's got anything to do with Galileo. Like,
one for the
why
old
would
Google.
it be called a galaxy? Because obviously, like, a galaxy is another like made up thing. Because no one's ever been to space, and unlike this notion of there being stars and solar systems and suns up there is completely unfounded. Yeah, it's just completely unfounded. So yeah, that'd actually be interesting. Where does the word galaxy come from? Where do we get the word galaxy?
We put it out there. Maybe someone will leave a comment. Maybe we'll get one of our first as a new milestone in our soon-to-be banned and censored podcast series. Which, by the way, bringing that up, I think that's one of the reasons why it's going to be difficult on our newly found YouTube channel with the same tag for our viewers, though there is no content yet on that channel. I think it's going to be difficult to upload to YouTube because I feel, especially with respect to last episode, the moment you mention certain words, for instance, certain religious faiths or, certain topics in general, things just don't go well. Especially. And the thing about YouTube is it's Google owned as well, so I can see them being able to just buy your entire account, your Google just disappearing, all your Drive files just being thrown into the digital ash or digital flames. That's the concern. So I think we'd have to be very careful when we upload that.
Yeah.
Can't be
We need to tread carefully.
On with slippers on a bed of clouds. That's how careful we need to be.
That's going to be tough. I mean, because basically anything that you say that's true can just trigger the algorithm, trigger
the larger
the
larger lady sat on her desk monitoring everybody's uploads at YouTube head office. The SJW saw, I can see double shaved sides, pink top, 1,000 piercings on the face, screaming feminist slander at any male orientated individual that she sees with an upload about bikes, BMXs, skydiving, and the origin of the universe in true form. That's my imagination.
I don't know, that imagination sounds like a very realistic one.
That's what I thought. Yeah, it's so realistic. I mean, I almost think Skype's going to shut us off in a minute. Listening in.
Yeah, but yeah, we can maybe start to wind this one up. Then we've done about 5 minutes or so. We thank you in advance for listening once again to the fantastic oratory skills of Mr. Jonathan and the dulcet tones of Mr. James. And yeah, we look forward to entertaining you some more in the future.
I do too. I'm very, very happy for next episode. So let's hope we can get one, I don't know, out in the next week or so after this upload. And yeah, again, if anyone has any questions, the email is always going to be in the, I believe it's in the description. And yeah, feel free to shoot us anything semi-pornographic. I'm just kidding, of course. But oh, but as you like, any questions are always welcome, positive or negative. It's all useful. So yeah, we'll see you next time. Au revoir, James. I'll speak to you in the meantime, of course.
Yeah, hasta luego. Adios.
Bye-bye.